We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Tes Amud Aleph in Meseches Nedarim. This is Nedarim Daf 59a. And the previous Amud, the Gemara had said that if you have something where the Isser comes through Karka, so then it can also be nullified through Karka, meaning if you have growth, and that growth, let's say, is mutter, and it's the majority, so it can nullify the original. And so the Gemara says, well, what about by Meiser? By Meiser Sheni, we do not see that is the case. And the Gemara now answers, Amri, they answer, Meiser digun hu de kagarim le. By Meiser, it's not the earth which creates the Isser, it's actually the digun, the piling up of the grain. That's what causes it, and therefore it's not something that's al yedei karka, so the same principle does not apply. The Ran over here says, Meiser digun hu de kagarim le shal yedei digun mischayev b'meiser. It is through the piling up of the grain that there's a chi of Meiser, v'lo al yedei karka. It's not something that happens al yedei karka. And the Gemara continues, Mesiv Rami Bar Chama. Rami Bar Chama asks the following question from our Mishnah. Konim peros ha'elu Allah. If a person says these fruits, particular fruits, are konim to me, konim hein alpi, konim hein lifi, they're konim on my mouth, to my mouth. Asr b'chilufeyenu v'gidulein. So in that case where you specified the fruits, he's forbidden not only in them, but also anything that's exchanged for them, anything that grows from them. Shani ochos v'shani tom. But if the phrase is that I won't eat from it, that I won't taste from it, mutter b'chilufeyenu v'gidulein, then it's mutter in the items that are exchanged or that grow from it. B'davar shazaro kala. But all of this is true only in a situation where when you plant it, the seed is destroyed. Aval b'davar she'ein zaro kala. But if it's something where the seed is not destroyed, afilu gidule asur. Even the growth from the growth is going to be asur. So that's what the question was originally, was talking about something that's ein zaro kala. And over here by Nedarim, we're saying the gidulin and even the gidulin are asur. And the Ran over here explains, Mesiv Rami Bar Chama konim peros ha'elu alai l'Rabbi Yanai parach. This is a question on Rabbi Yanai. The Amar le'el, because he said earlier, batzel shel truma, sherabu gidulav ali karo mutter. He said if you have this onion of truma, and the gidulim grow, and they're bigger than the original, so he says it's going to be mutter, there's going to be nullification over there. The al masvir le dechulu gidulin afapi she'eni suran al yedei karka. So again, you see that all of these gidulin, even though it's not something where the Yisr comes through the karka, malin eso ikar, they raise up the original, they make everything mutter. So that's the question over here by konamos, because by konamos, on the contrary, we're saying everything is asur by konamos. So that's the contradiction. And the Gemara answers, Amar Rabbi Abba says, Shani konamos, it's different by konamos, hoil v'iboy mishal alaya, because by konamos, meaning by neder, it's something that you can ask and you can get undone. So have eluhud kedavar sheyesh lo matirin, so that becomes like something that's a davar sheyesh lo matirin. A davar sheyesh lo matirin is something which eventually has some kind of heter. The ain batal barov. The halacha by davar sheyesh lo matirin is that it's not batal barov, and that's the same thing over here. That's why the gidulin, again, by the nedarim, are asur. And the Gemara says, 1 second, Varei Truma, but Truma itself, the boy mishal Allah, it is something that you can ask on and you can undo. It's just like a neder through Pesach or Charater, you're able to undo it. Ubatli barov, yet we're saying that there is bittul barov. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Sa'at Truma Tameya, Shenafla Lepachos Mimeya Chulin Tirkav. It says, let's say you have a Sa'ah of Truma that's Tameh and it falls into less than 100 times the amount of Chulin, so then Tirkav, then you have to let it rot, then we're saying it's not batal. Holimeya Tala, but if it falls into 100, there is bittul. So the grow over here has the gear so that it shouldn't be ubatli barov, not that truma is batal in a majority, because it's not batal in a majority. We're saying over here it's batal b'meya, but in any case it is batal b'meya, and yet that is something that's davar sheyesh lo matirin. It shouldn't be batal at all. And the Gemara answers, Amri, they answer, B'truma biad kohen askina. No, what we're talking about over here, when we talk about the truma tameya that falls into truma, and it could be batal, that's talking about when it's already in the hands of the kohen. It's too late to ask and undo it. The lo matzi mishal Allah, you can't undo it anymore. If you have truma, let's say by the Yisrael, he hasn't given it to the kohen, he designates certain produce truma, so he can undo it, he could designate something else. But once it's given to the kohen, it's too late. But the Gemara says, 1 second, if so, Ema Sefer, let's look at the end of the very same Mishnah. Im Haisa Tahora, it says, let's say it was pure truma that fell in, so Timacher LaKohen, so then it can be sold to a Kohen. So obviously it hasn't been given to the Kohen yet. And so the Gemara instead answers, Ella, rather, that Mishnah is discussing Bi Yisrael. We're talking about a Yisrael. Shenaflu lo mi beis avi imo kohen askin. And what's happening over here is the truma actually was given to a Kohen. It was given to his grandfather. But he himself, the grandson, is not a Kohen because it was his grandfather through his mother's side. So he inherited the truma through his mother. And so therefore, that's why we're saying over here, you can't ask on it anymore. You can't undo it because it was already given to the Kohen. And again, if it is pure, then it is to be sold to a Kohen. But the Gemara says, Vakatani Seifa, but 1 second, it says at the end, Timacher l'kohen chutz midmei osa sa'ah. It says that it should be sold to a kohen except for the value of the saw that fell into the mixture, because we know there's only one saw of actual truma. So that implies that it's not being sold by someone who actually owns it, because if it was inherited here by a grandson, you could even sell that saw, you could sell the whole thing. That implies the fact that you're selling it except for the saw sounds like we're talking about a Yisrael who has not yet given it to a kohen, and he's selling it besides for the value of the saw that he has to give to the kohen. And so the Gemara instead answers, Ella Ema rather say as follows, B'shalama konamos, we understand by konamos why we're strict, because that's considered a davar sheyesh lo matirin. Why? Because a mitzvah is shule alein. It's actually a mitzvah to ask and undo a neder. Mishum de Rabbi Nosson, because of what Rabbi Nosson said. D'yamar Rabbi Nosson, because Rabbi Nosson said, Kol hanoder, anyone who makes a neder, ki'ilu bama, it's like building a bama, v'hamekaimu, and somebody who's mekayim the neder fulfills it, ki'ilu maktir aleh, it's like burning something upon the bama. So the point is, the neder is something that we actually want to undo. That's considered a davar sheyesh lo matirin. However, truma, my mitzvah is shulei Allah. When it comes to truma, is there a mitzvah to undo it? Of course not, and therefore they are not comparable. And the Gemara continues, Gufa, returning to what we said above. Amar Rabbi Yochanan said, Litra bitzalim shetikna vizara. Let's say you have a litra of bitzalim, of onion. Shetikna means to say you took off all the proper maisers, but then you plant it, now you have new growth. Misaseres lefikuli. You have to take off maiser again from the entire thing. The Ran over here explains, Gufa litra bitzalim shetikna vizara kolomar shehifrish kol masro seha. You've already taken off all the maisers. Misaseres lefi kuli. You got to take off maiser again on the whole thing. Velo lefi gidulin bilvad. Not only the gidulin, the asu gidulin mevatli ikar legamri, because the growth comes and it's mevatel the original entirely. This was quoted earlier as a proof again that the gidulin are mevatel, and the Gemara had said over there, it's not necessarily a proof that you can be lenient and the gidulin are mevatel the ikar. This is just a proof that you're machmir, that the gidulin are mevatel the yikr. In any case, the Gemara now says, Yosef Rabba said, V'kamer lo shmait, he said this over. Amar lei Rav Chisda said to him, Man sois loch, ul Rabbi Yochanan Rabba, who's going to listen to you and Rabbi Yochanan your Rebbe about this halacha? Heter shebahen lahechon halach. Where did the heter go over here? Why do you have to take off meiser on something you already took off meiser? The Ran over here explains, V'chi heter shebahen lahechon halach, nira be'enai, it appears to me the pshat is as follows. Da'achi makshi, here was the question. Afilu tema de gidulin shal heter mevatlim, ikar shal iser. Even if you say the growth of heter is mevatel the original iser. Hazamainu taima mishum dekemen shurabav gidula vali karo. The reason over there is because since you have more growth than the original, nimsa shekesha ochel enotoim tam iser klal. So it comes out you're not tasting the iser anymore. That's the idea of bittul. Hilka chafal pisha iser shebo mu'urav besocha. Therefore, even though you have iser involved over there, mixed up over there, below azalei lial mashari, it's still going to be permitted. Avagave meiser, but when it comes to meiser, since it's all a mathematical calculation of how much meiser to take, why are you taking meiser according to the entire thing? Where did the heter go? The heter is still there. There's no need to take off meiser on something you already took off. And so the Gemara says, Amar Lei, he said back to him, Milo Tanan Dechevasa. Didn't we learn something similar already in the Mishnah? It says, B'tzalim sheyardu aleim geshamim v'tzimchu. Let's say you have onions and it rains and they grow. The Mefarish over here says, B'tzalim shel shishas. We're talking here about onions of the 6th year of the Shemitah year, of the Shemitah cycle. Leima heter shebehen ha'ikr shegadlu b'shishas lahechan halach. You could have said the same argument over there. The original that grew in the 6th year, where did it go? V'tishteri ha'ikr. And so at least that original, that 6th year should be permitted. We'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Nun Tes Amud Beis.